PAC's chief negotiator for the US-Iran talks is now being seen as a red flag for Trump. Is General Asim Munir an honest broker, or a strategic risk in the room? Is this another embarrassment for Pakistan after the Islamabad talks blunder? With its carefully crafted mediator image now under fresh scrutiny? US intelligence reportedly labeled Asim Munir a liability after the failed talks, raising sharp questions over ceasefire negotiations. Has Munir's double role been exposed, as US officials question his relationships with Iran's top military leaders and what that means for American interests? US intelligence reportedly flagged Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir as a potential red flag, according to a Fox News report, identifying him as a figure of concern in current assessments. The intelligence also labeled Munir as a liability for the Trump administration amid ongoing US-Iran ceasefire talks, suggesting his role could complicate sensitive diplomacy. This assessment comes at a time when Islamabad is acting as a back-channel mediator between Washington and Tehran, helping pass messages while formal contacts remain limited. US concerns center on Munir's alleged long-standing ties with Iran's top military leadership, which American officials view as a potential conflict with his current mediation role. These alleged links include past contacts with slain Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani and current IRGC Chief Hossein Salami, both central figures in Iran's regional military strategy. Officials have warned that this dual role could pose risks to US strategic interests, according to reports, especially in high-stakes ceasefire talks. This intelligence unease comes despite Trump's public praise for Munir, with the US president describing him as his favorite field marshal. Trump has publicly credited Munir with doing a great job in arranging peace talks, acknowledging Pakistan's army chief as a key facilitator in efforts to reduce tensions. Some reports suggest Munir may be leveraging his rapport with Trump to quietly advance Iranian interests, using his personal access to influence the shape and terms of negotiations. Multiple media reports also highlight Pakistan's broader history in Afghanistan, noting that its regional role today is viewed through that previous record. Pakistan has long been accused of backing the Taliban while simultaneously receiving US assistance, creating a pattern of alleged double-tracking that now colors perceptions of its role in US-Iran talks. Doubts emerged as Iran and the US failed to reach a deal despite intense talks in Pakistan, which went on for 21 hours. The rare in-person meeting, the first of its kind in over a decade, had raised hopes of de-escalation before ending in disappointment. US Vice President J.D. Vance later said the discussions were held in good faith, but acknowledged they had not produced any agreement. Vance added that Washington had put forward what he called its final and best offer, arguing that Tehran chose not to accept key conditions, particularly on nuclear commitments. Donald Trump, meanwhile, struck a defiant tone, insisting that the United States had already won the conflict by defeating Iran militarily, regardless of whether a deal was reached. Donald Trump has pulled his war cabinet into an urgent huddle just as Iran shuts the Strait of Hormuz again, sharply raising the stakes for both diplomacy and conflict. On April 18th, he reportedly convened an emergency situation room meeting specifically to respond to Iran's surprise decision to reimpose restrictions on the waterway. Senior figures including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Chief Pete Hegseth and the CIA Director John Ratcliffe were among those called in, highlighting how serious the moment is. Trump's inner circle confidants like Scott Bessant, Susie Wilkes along with Joint Chiefs Chair Dan Kane, were also reportedly at the table. One US official has already warned that if no breakthrough comes soon, the war could resume within days, underscoring how fragile the current pause really is. The crisis session lands just days before the current US-Iran ceasefire is due to expire on April 22nd, adding extra pressure to decide whether to extend talks or restart strikes. Reports also say Iran has privately warned it could resume missile fire on Israel if the new ceasefire in Lebanon breaks down or is not carried into a longer-term deal. A 10-day Israel-Hezbollah truce started on April 18th, yet Israeli officials have already labeled it temporary, hinting they still see unfinished business in the north. On the same day, Iran abruptly reversed its earlier reopening and slapped new restrictions back on the Strait of Hormuz, reigniting fears over critical oil choke point. The step came directly after Washington chose to keep its naval blockade on Iran-linked shipping in place, even as Tehran briefly relaxed its own controls. Maritime sources say vessels have been warned against passing through the narrow strait without clearance, injecting fresh uncertainty into global shipping routes. Iran insists that ultimate control over Hormuz remains with its forces, framing the current standoff as a test of its sovereignty at sea. Trump has publicly shrugged off the closure as cute, insisting talks with Tehran are going well even as his own military planners quietly model worst-case scenarios.
And we'll be talking about Iran later. We have very good conversations going on. It's working out very well. They got a little cute, as they have been doing for 47 years. Nobody ever took them on. We took them on. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no leaders. They have no nothing. Actually, their leaders are, it is regime change. You call that enforced regime change. But we're talking to them. They wanted to close up the strait again, as they've been doing for years. And they can't blackmail us. In fact, a lot of the ships are coming up to Texas. I don't know if you know, in Louisiana, the ships are coming up. They got used to it. Maybe they'll keep doing it. It's worked out pretty good. But it's going actually along very well. And we'll see. But we'll have some information by the end of the day. We're talking to them. And, we're taking a tough stand. They've killed a lot of people. A lot of our people have been killed. A lot of your fellow soldiers have been killed over the years by Iran. The roadside bomb. Soleimani, I killed Soleimani.
Thank you for that. He was making the explosive form penetrators. They were making them in Iran, bringing them to Iraq and blasting through the vehicles.
Well, he was the father of the roadside bomb, essentially, and he killed a lot of people. And when you see soldiers or others, but soldiers generally walking around with no legs, with no arms, a face that's been smashed, that was Soleimani, that was Iran that did that. So we have a much different view on it than other presidents. They've gotten away with murder for 47 years. They're not getting away with it anymore.
At the very same time, Iran's supreme leader has promised fresh defeats for both the US and Israel at sea if they miscalculate. Mujtaba Khamenei says Iran's navy stands ready to inflict new bitter defeats on its enemies, framing Hormuz as a battlefield where past drone strikes are only a taste of what's possible.
The Iranian army, standing in dense, steadfast ranks, shoulder to shoulder with other fighters and armed forces, has grappled with the two main armies of the Iranians front and has exposed their weakness and humiliation before the world. Just as the army's drones hit American and Zionist criminals like lightning, its brave navy stands ready to make its enemies taste the bitterness of new defeats.
Despite active back channels, no firm date has been set for the next formal round of US-Iran talks, leaving the diplomatic track in a holding pattern. Washington insists negotiations are continuing, but officials admit that no final deal has been reached and key issues remain unresolved. With Hormuz effectively shut again, global shipping and oil markets now face a fresh wave of uncertainty, all while the ceasefire end date, and the risk of renewed war, draws ever closer.